Okay, while those guys are getting the pond excavation finished, I'm going to show you here what our 1000 skimmer looks like when you take it out of the box. So there's the opening for the weir door, the adjustable height weir door, and then on the back side there are pre-drilled holes. One I haven't put anything in yet. This is for the bulkhead. Now one of these is for our overflow. One of these is going to be running to our pump. So if you've never installed a bulkhead fitting before, I'm going to kind of walk you through that. So a bulkhead fitting, this is what's going to keep that pre-drilled hole from leaking water and connect it directly to the check valve of our pump. We've got two washers. We've got a rubber washer and then we've got this plastic washer. So when putting this in, always make sure that this rubber side is on the water side. And then this other flat one goes on the back. And then it's reverse thread, so it's no longer righty-tighty, it's lefty-tighty. And you want to make that nice and snug by hand, and then using a large pair of channel locks, you're going to turn that about a quarter turn. You don't want to over tighten these because you can actually crack the inner part of the bulkhead. The same thing is true when you go to connect your fittings into it. You don't want to over torque them into the fitting because you can actually expand it too much and it'll crack. So one of these is our overflow. The other one connects on the back side of our check valve, and that goes to the plumbing, which runs up to the biofalls. So on the inside, we now have a fitting for our check valve that comes right through to the plumbing. This is a male pipe thread fitting, 2-inch, so it goes right in. I'm gonna silicone this one, and I'm also gonna silicone this one here for the overflow. Now this here, we're gonna set that to exactly the height of our water based off of the patio in the distance. So using that laser transit, we're gonna dig this down and make sure that this is right in line with our maximum water level. We can then fine tune how much water is in the pond based on that adjustable door. But for now, we want to set this skimmer in so this right here is at water level. Biofalls is over there, and here we're going to situate our skimmer. Now typically we try to set that first, but we had our benchmark of our patio over there, so we knew that wasn't going to change, and we're working backwards from the opposite side. So we're going to dig this in over here, and then again, I'm going to use the water level that we determined 4 inches below that patio and sink this skimmer until this overflow is at that 4 inches below patio. That's our water level. That's going to be the maximum that this pond will hold, and that's how we set all of our shelves and that bottom excavation. When you open up your 1000 Aquascape skimmer, inside the box here you'll find your skimmer. That's your basket. That's for easy removal of any debris that gets pulled in there. This is the tray on which that green pre-filter pad sits and protects any of the large debris from getting to the pump. We've got our faux rock lid. This disguises it right into the landscape so you don't see it as an eyesore. The older styles was just a black plastic lid. Really didn't look good, didn't look clean. With this here, you can spin it around 4 different ways to sit on top of the skimmer to match in your stonework from within the pond. So it really is a nice way to blend it in. It does look great over time. It does kind of start to age just like the rest of the rocks in the pond, so it really does blend into the rest of your rock work. And then lastly, inside here, I have all the hardware and that faceplate to attach. So I'm gonna go hop in the pond and show you guys how we do that. Okay, so when you open the box that's within the main box with all the other components, you'll find here we've got the backing plate, which includes the adjustable height weir door. So this can come up and down so you can fine tune exactly where your water height will be, so it still allows debris to be floating across the surface and drawn into that skimmer basket. So here is that adjustable door. The door flaps open and close. It has a locking position for servicing the pump once it's installed, and then these two adjustment screws are what allow it to slide up and down, and then you just screw them in tight when you got it to the height you want. Built into it are all of the set screws, and then this is our faceplate, which goes on the pond side. And so this matches up with those holes on there. So what I need to do next is make sure I've got plenty of slack on the face of the skimmer here. I don't want to make it nice and tight, because once we start setting rocks or as things start to settle, I don't want any extra stress on where we put our holes. So I leave a lot of this extra here. That can be disguised with rock work later, but leaving that extra slack eliminates any of that extra tension and pulling on it that might be made when we set our rocks right next to it to frame it out. What I've done here, using this faceplate, I had it over the top here, and using the provided hole puncher, I made sure that across the face of my skimmer, which is in the ground here, the liner laid nice and flat, no wrinkles. This is a factory crease, but that's okay. This will all get squeezed nice and tight when we get to putting that bead of silicone around the back. The nice thing about this 1000 skimmer is you don't have to pre-cut any holes. Some of these smaller skimmers, you actually have to cut the hole first and slide the whole assembly through. That gets a little nerve-wracking, but this one is so straightforward. You just have to make sure your liner, again, is nice and smooth along the face of it, and that you've got plenty of slack. You can see I've got plenty of slack all the way around the bottom. This way, as we set our frame rocks to disguise this, there is no way that it's going to be pulling at these mechanical holes that we've poked through here. So the next thing what I want to do is pull this all apart, get this part on with the bolts through it, and then I'm going to clean the backside of the liner and then clean the face of that skimmer. This way, when I put my bead of non-toxic silicone on there, it's going to have a nice clean surface to adhere to, and this way making that watertight seal. So here we are. I've got all of those screws through the holes, through the faceplate. Now I'm just using a wet rag. I'm using a piece of clean fabric, and I just want to wipe this all down, get any of that dirt off the surface here, because again, we want that silicone to have a nice, clean, dry surface to adhere to. This is the only area where we're going to be cutting through the liner, so it's important that we make this as clean and as watertight as it should be. So this preparation work here is all it takes to make sure that this skimmer is installed correctly. So we are right on path here to get that done. Lastly, what I need to do, again, I'm going to put a generous bead of silicone all the way around here, right over all of these bolt holes. I like to use about a 1/4 inch bead. That is plenty, because it will squeeze out as I start to tighten these screws. And then again, that's what makes that seal. And I like to make a double pass around. Silicone is pretty inexpensive when it comes to making sure that this is sealed properly. So I go around, really ooze it right over those holes. And then now we're ready to attach this through. I've got the receiving end over here, so I'm just going to line it up, start pushing my screws through, and then just with my hand screw them in just until the threads start to grab, and then go around afterwards with a screwdriver and really tighten them good. You don't have to over tighten them. Oftentimes I think people try to really over torque it, and that strips the head out, and then it really is not doing anything to help it. So just nice and tight, and then a little more. Just about finished. So I've got everything attached. Everything is nice and snug. Like I said, you don't want to over torque these things in there. They come with the Phillips head, and I believe it's also a 1/2 inch. You could use a drive, but I don't recommend that because you'll definitely try to over torque it with the socket wrench. So use your Phillips head screwdriver with a nice big head. It fits in there perfectly, nice and snug. Then all you need to do, using a brand new, very sharp blade, is follow the edges here and try to keep that rounded edge. That rounded edge is there for a reason, because this liner, when cut at a rounded edge as opposed to a 90, has less of a tendency to tear. So they did that by design. So just follow the contour and just trace around, and then that's it, folks. You've installed your Aquascape 1000 skimmer. Ta-da! There we go. Now we've got, this is our weir door here. That's what allows us to adjust our height up and down. And so now from the flip side, you can see that the skimmer is now open, and we can adjust the height of that, you know, up and down several inches, so we can really fine tune exactly where we'll get the optimal skimming into the basket there. So there we go. This one's done.